All right, so here's the last session for lesson 9, and we're talking about comparing and rounding decimals. This is just basically a review of all the things we've done up until this point. So let's start up with our warm up. So it's asked us one to use the greater than or less than symbol to write an inequality statement comparing these two numbers. So let's write these down first. The order is not going to really matter for these. Just have to like space them apart and have a spot here to put our less than and greater than. So for this, we basically just start comparing them with the ones place. So those places are the same. So then we move on to the tens place, and immediately we see that the 5 is being compared to the 1. So at that point, we can ignore the rest of these numbers and just go stop at the point that the 5 is greater than the 1. So this number, 3 and 54 hundredths, is greater than 3 and 172 thousandths. Again, just a review on that. So the first page for this is on page 183. We'll skip this example since it's already done for us, and it's using a number line, which I'm trying to steer us away from. I'd really prefer for us to use different methods to do our rounding. So a grocery store charges to the nearest tenth of a pound for tomatoes. Landon has 2 and 386 thousandths pound of tomatoes. How many pounds of tomatoes will the store charge Landon for? Show your work. So let's first of all write down our number. And we want to figure out to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to draw an arrow drawing my attention to the tenths place. Now the tenths place is what's going to be changed. And it's going to be changed depending on the place value to the right, which I'm circling here. So we have an 8 in the hundred spot. We know if it's 5 or above, we'll round up. If it's 4 below, we will keep that number the way it is. So since it's above 5, we will round up to 2 and 4 tenths. And that's 2 and 4 tenths pounds be what they get charged for. Let's go on to the next page, the next question. It says Ellie purchases 14 and 297 thousandths gallons of gas. Her friend Olivia purchases 14 and 209 thousandths gallons of gas. Write an inequality statement comparing the two gas purchases and show your work. For this one, I'd like us to use a place value chart. Just as a nice way to review. We go as big as the tenths place, we go as small as the thousandths place. So tens, ones, decimals. We have tenths, hundredths, and here is the thousandths place. Okay, so let's put in our two numbers. We have 14 and 297 thousandths, and we're comparing it to 14 and 209 thousandths. So we're going to go through this. The tens place matches up. The ones places matches up. The tenths place matches up. It's not till we get to the hundredths place that we've got a difference in numbers. So we're going to ignore the thousandths place and cross it right out. Now let's compare the 9 and the 0. A 9 is larger than, obviously larger than the 0. So the number that has the 9 here, that number is greater than this number. You also could look at it this way, and the book kind of touches on that a little bit. You could compare 297 to 209. You could look at it that way as well. So it's just depending on how you want to look at it. I just go by each place value until I get to the one that one side clearly wins over the other. All right, let's look at 3. Which of the following comparisons is not true? Well, we'll look at the first one. These zeros don't really matter, so this does check out. That's fine. Let's see. For this one, 5.020 is less than 5.2, so that's true. This one, it says 149 thousandths is less than 1 and 49 hundredths. That's true. And this last one says 108 and 308 thousandths is greater than 108 and 4 tenths. Now we could add 2 zeros here, and it would clearly show that this one is bigger. So this would be the one that's wrong. Again, don't be thrown off by the addition of zeros here. Sometimes you can just ignore them, cross them out, or add some to even things out. So Ava chose A as the correct answer. How'd she get that answer? I think what she looked at was the decimal part. She saw 300 and assumed that that was greater than 3. But what we know is she could have added 2 zeros to show that those actually equal each other. So just got to be careful with that stuff. All right, look across on the next page. Malcolm rounds each weight shown to the nearest hundredth of a pound. Which weight does not round to 2 and 46 hundredths pounds? Well, let's round them to nearest hundredth. So this is going to be 2.456. This is the hundredth spot right there, and we've got a 6 here. So that rounds up to 2.46. This is 2 and 457ths. That 7 will make this round up to 2 and 46 hundredths. This one is 2 and 454. Here's our hundredths. That 4 will make it stay the same. That's 2 and 45 hundredths. But let's do the last one just in case. 2 and 459. That 9 will round up that to 2 and 46 hundredths. So this is the one that does not change. So our answer is C. For this one, which comparison is not true? This one's true. This is also true. 1 and 78 hundredths is less than 1 and 92 hundredths. This one's a little tricky, but it basically says this. This is basically 1 and 7 in the tenths, 8 in the hundredths, and this is 1 and 9 in the tenths, and 2 in the hundredths. So that clearly it means this one would be larger, and that is true, which means this last one is not true, just by process of elimination. Okay. In class, I would have skipped number 6. You can turn the page. So number 7 takes a little bit of time here, but I think it's worth it. It's a 2-part question, and that's where sometimes this gets a little difficult, but the weight of 4 packages of meat are shown below. So there's packages A, B, C, and D, and their weights are done all the way up to the thousandths place. So let's do part A. Each package is priced by how much it weighs the nearest tenth of a pound. Order the packages from greatest to least weight. So this is a 2-part question. So let's round each of these to the nearest tenth. And up here, I'm going to create this thing right here, because if I look ahead, I know I'm going to have to redo these. So let's create this tenth and hundredths part. So rounding this one to the nearest tenth, this one is going to be 1.74. Package B is going to be 1.7. Sorry about that, 1.6. This one will be 1.8, and this one will be 1.5. Okay, so I'm looking at the hundredths place to determine how I'm going to be rounding all of these. So we've got a 4, a 5, and a 3, and the only one that rounds up is package C. So we want to order them from greatest to least. So the biggest one is C, the next biggest is A, the next biggest after that is B, and finally we'll end with D. Now I like this question because it wants us to do a second thing here, a look at it a second way. Let's round these up to the nearest hundredths, which means we're going to be looking at the thousandths place to determine whether we round up or keep the number. So this rounds up to 1.75. This rounds up to 1.65. This rounds up to 1.75. And this rounds to 1.53. So those last two actually don't change at all. Now let's order them from greatest to least. So we're looking up here, and we have this, actually 1.75. Let's figure out how we're going to be doing this. Runs to nearest hundredth. 0.75. So we've got C and A will both be the same, and then it's still B and D. Interesting. All right, let's move on. All right, last question. Round this number to the nearest tenth and nearest hundredth. So we will split this up. And let's rewrite them both here. And 23, 5, 4, 6. Okay, so we're rounding nearest tenth. Means we're going to look at the 4. This will give us 23 and 5/10. This will be rounded nearest hundredth. And that'll be 23 and 55 hundredths for that one. And at this point, it's pretty simple. I don't need to go over the basics at this point because we've done plenty of review. All right, for your classwork today, it's going to be G15. Now, they're word problems, but they're pretty straightforward. They're not too lengthy, and they give you the numbers and ask you what to do with them. Now, we've been doing pretty much almost all of these have been word problems we've been doing in our books, so it should be fairly familiar to you. So you can go to 70% for full credit or 100% for a house points.